Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are fast-forwarding right into the future of our food system. We're going to be looking at how climate change, rapid tech innovation, and shifting global policies are absolutely about to rewrite the menu as we know it. We've pulled together some deep research, expert foresight, and real-world data to map out exactly where our plates are headed.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to imagine, just for a second, fast-forwarding with me a little over a decade into the future. What is your dinner plate actually going to look like in the year 2035? Well, according to foresight experts from the EIT Food Consumer Observatory, the answer to that depends entirely on which path society decides to take. To really understand our options, we're going to explore two very different but totally plausible future scenarios for the European food ecosystem.
So, first up, let's meet Maria. She's a 70-year-old living in Berlin in what researchers are calling Scenario A, Green and Me. In this reality, the food system is highly personalized. It is incredibly high-tech, and it's laser-focused on individual health and sustainability. Maria actually starts her day by checking this personalized AI app that's linked to a wristband to track her blood glucose, plus a microbiome monitor analyzing her gut health. Sounds like a sci-fi movie, right? Her kitchen even features an augmented reality assistant guiding her cooking to minimize waste. And when she goes shopping, she experiences dynamic eco-pricing. Basically, stores like Mordisco Verde adjust their prices in real time based on her own personal environmental footprint. For dinner, she's having lab-grown meat. It's this high-tech ecosystem where climate-resilient fruits and total supply chain transparency are just the everyday norm. And this brilliantly illustrates our pivot to a completely different path. Scenario B, Frugal and Local. Meet Sofia. She lives in a picturesque town in Spain. Now, in her reality, successive food crises and a massive, deep-rooted mistrust in global corporations have actually led to the collapse of global trade. So instead of high-tech apps, Sofia's world relies on localized, low-tech ecosystems driven purely by community values. She farms using organic regenerative practices, think crop rotation and natural pest control. Her community is huge on co-living and co-cooking to share costs and swap recipes. It's a world where food is a shared, deeply localized resource designed to build social cohesion and adapt to climate change literally from the ground up. Now, you might be wondering, what happens when we put these two scenarios side by side? The core differences are pretty striking. Scenario A is all about leveraging individual data and cutting-edge tech to basically force sustainability and health. It's incredibly efficient, sure, but as the researchers note, there's a huge risk of leaving behind anyone who isn't affluent or tech-savvy. Scenario B, on the flip side, is born straight out of a mistrust in global supply chains. It prioritizes community values, shared resources, and localized farming. Ultimately, both are responses to the exact same global pressures, but they represent entirely different philosophies on how we actually survive them. All right, let's pull ourselves rapidly back to the present day, because these futuristic scenarios, they aren't just fun science fiction, they are born out of very urgent real-world crises happening in our food system right this second. We are currently facing massive pressures that are literally forcing a global agricultural transition. To understand where we're going, we really have to look at the catalysts demanding this change today. Now, what's really interesting and honestly pretty sobering about this is the reality we are facing. Today, an estimated 7% of European households with children are actively experiencing food insecurity. And the research highlights that this isn't just about empty stomachs. Actually, it's way more than that. This level of food insecurity significantly harms a child's physical, psychological, and social well-being. It directly impedes cognitive development and how they function in school. This is happening right now in high-income countries, heavily exacerbated by recent economic and health crises.
And that 7%, it's being driven by what I can only call a perfect storm of growing threats. First up, geopolitical shocks, like the war in Ukraine, have just severely disrupted global supply chains, which directly caused our second threat, an agricultural input crisis. We're talking massive spikes in the cost of fertilizers and energy, which translates directly to way higher food prices at the checkout line. Third, extreme climate events like droughts and floods are absolutely devastating crop yields. Because of all this, policymakers are desperately trying to manage a major shift. We can no longer just focus on producing enough calories. We have an absolute, urgent need to secure actual nutrition security for populations. So, how do we fight back? Well, by actively building technological solutions today to secure our tomorrow. And we are seeing some incredible innovations out there.
Think about advanced hydroponic systems powered by desalination and solar energy, like the ones being tested right now in Morocco, which allow crops to grow regardless of whatever crazy weather is happening outside. We're looking at smart greenhouses where human intervention is minimal, and autonomous farm robotics that can perfectly optimize harvesting. AI is even being deployed to monitor everything from soil health all the way to offshore shellfish aquaculture. But, we have to play devil's advocate for a moment here, because consumers are asking some very valid questions. Mainly, are we just producing even more processed food? As we push toward things like lab-grown alternatives and novel ingredients, there is some very real skepticism. The source material highlights that consumer trust is actually dropping. People feel totally bombarded by marketing, and they fear that these new food technologies might just be creating ultra-processed items that take us even further away from natural nutrition. To understand that, we need to look at two massive fields driving this push. First is precision agriculture. This is all about optimizing inputs via drones and AI, so a farm uses exactly the right amount of water or fertilizer, literally no more, no less. Second is precision fermentation, which creates novel ingredients and alternative proteins without traditional farming at all. Both of these have massive, game-changing potential to reduce our environmental footprint. But as the research stresses over and over, these innovations just won't succeed unless they are socially acceptable and ethically desirable to the general public. So the crucial point is that while AI and robotics can absolutely aid environmental sustainability, they come with some pretty heavy economic dilemmas. Smart robotic solutions, they are incredibly costly right now. If we aren't careful, this massive need for investment is going to leave small-scale farmers completely in the dust, leading to a huge loss of farming identity. Plus, there is this incredibly complex issue of monetizing externalities, basically figuring out how to financially account for the hidden environmental costs or benefits of producing a certain food. Let's move to Section 3, the blueprint, global food policy challenges. Because, as we'll see, having the technology is really only half the battle. The complex governance required to manage it is a whole different beast. And when we look across the globe, different regions face wildly varying hurdles in transitioning their food systems. It's like a giant puzzle. In Europe, the main challenge is policy coherence. Policymakers are totally struggling with the trade-offs between maintaining high agricultural productivity and meeting strict new climate and biodiversity targets. Then take a smaller country like Luxembourg. Their challenge is sheer import dependence and relying on external markets, making them super vulnerable to price shocks. Meanwhile, over in Africa, the hurdles are huge structural vulnerabilities, extreme exposure to climate shocks combined with weaker institutional implementation capacity, and some really severe data gaps. So, surviving future food shocks requires actionable solutions, and the research points to 3 high-impact takeaways. First, we need better measurement and data. We simply cannot manage what we cannot measure, and right now, linking policy spending to actual food security outcomes is incredibly difficult. Second, we absolutely must adopt integrated cross-sector governance, breaking down those stubborn silos between agriculture, health, and the environment. And third, we have to move to a resilience-first approach. We can no longer rely on reactive crisis management. We need food systems designed from the ground up to absorb global shocks. Which brings us to a deeply provocative question raised in the source material. As we transition to this high-tech, highly sustainable, and hopefully resilient food system of the future, who is actually going to pay for it? Will the massive costs of precision robotics and regenerative policies be passed right on to you, the consumer, at the grocery store? Will it crush the producers and small farmers? Or will governments bear the weight through subsidies? As you think about your own dinner plate in 2035, ask yourself, what is the real-world equity of our future food? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this leaves you eager to dig a little deeper into the future of our food.